We are live.
And welcome to a Grounded TV special. I don't know how this happened. It wasn't really on the books, and then it just sort of happened in combination with what you guys were demanding on Sunday, as well as I think what Saul's heart was demanding as well. So we're going to be having what Saul is labeling as a change my mind event. Is Trudeau worse than Trump? Grounded TV special. I called it the Grounded TV special. Saul came up with the first part, so credit to him for that. But yeah, so Saul, why don't you explain what we're going to be doing here and how we're going to change your mind on things?
So basically, my argument, and I got a lot of pushback yesterday in the chat about this, is that any criticism that you can levy at Justin Trudeau, you can levy that same criticism at Trump. And if anything, he's worse.
Dude, 2 cents was in here before we were, dude. Like, respect. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. You were more on time for our show than we are.
He gets an early shout out. Well, more on time than Saul was, but
true.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. Everybody continue.
Oh, but yeah. Just anything that you can criticize Trudeau for, I think either the same criticism can be levied at Trump, or if anything, he's worse. That's how I feel about it. If you want to come into Discord and try and change our minds, that's the argument we're doing. Justice had a few things he wanted to go over on stream today, just to get the crowd riled up.
Well, not even just get the crowd riled up, but just get everybody going. Just get everyone's Trump juices flowing in the brain here. Get on topic here. I was reading up earlier and refreshing my notes and stuff, and was like, all right. Let's actually, you know what? Let's have more of an argument about this, because there's a lot of things I forgot about. I'm like, you know what? These are actually some pretty good points I had to myself. These questions I was never really able to answer. And, well, I guess more of like responses to the questions you threw at me that we never really had the opportunity. I kept saying, you know what? We're going to do a speech. We're going to do a stream about it. You know, we kept saying we're going to do that for a long time. And then, yeah, like I said, we are finally doing it. And I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm pretty juiced up for it. What we're going to be getting into first is I've got a couple clips I wanted to go over of just CBC's coverage of Trump, just to show how the Canadian media views Trump, or the Canadian mainstream media views Trump, and what I think is a little bit unfair at times. And I think it's kind of more along the lines of where Saul's coming from. Like, that's the thing, is like, I'm not anyway like a huge Trump fan, but I still align a lot more with the Republican Party and values, and I can't get past a lot of issues with the Democrats that still keep me awake at night and just make me unable to say I would vote for that party wholeheartedly. I've had moments of doubt, don't get me wrong, but even just going through everything again today, I was like, you know what, there's still an argument here, right? And I guess the biggest thing too about it is I don't think Trump will be a dictator. You know, I don't think he will end up being a dictator if he gets back into office. So I guess that's my wholehearted argument there. And I know Saul doesn't agree with me on that.
I just think that
I think Trudeau, left unchecked long enough, would become a full-out dictator, but I think he kind of tried to and failed already. So,
I would argue the same for Trump. Yeah.
Well, you could argue that for Trump too, but that's why we wanted the audience to kind of engage with us on this one as well, to kind of just prevent me and Saul from going back and forth on the same points repetitively. But why don't we throw the clip up here from CBC, them covering some Trump news, and get everybody, you know, just upset with CBC.
Is that in our watch later, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it is.
Don't worry, they can't see me typing things.
Yeah, no, I didn't think they could. 2 cents in the chat. I think it's healthy to apply criticisms across the board. I think so as well. That's why I'll way open to criticize Pierre Poilievre as well, and anyone else I openly say that I like and would probably vote for, because I think that everybody, you can't exemplify anyone from any standards, right? And I guess that's what Saul's argument in here is that people give Trump a free pass for a lot of things they wouldn't give to anybody else. But, you know, in his defense, I've got some points here, because like I was watching actually a JP Sears video, an Awaken with JP video this morning when I was doing my chores and stuff, you know, call it my chores, but you know, it's housework, I guess. And I was just kind of like, I was like mindlessly listening to it. And it was really funny because he's covering this recent speech Trump gave. I didn't even know what happened. It was at some kind of dinner. I don't know if people know about it, but he openly just started roasting everybody. Like he just took this as an opportunity not to give a speech, but he treated it like it was a roast. Like it was so funny. And I was like listening to JP Sears react to it, and he picked like the best 5 points. You guys should go check it out on his channel if you want to check it out. But I watched that earlier, and I was like, it's so funny how well like it's almost like a stand-up comedian, and he's actually funny. You know, and it's doing like political humor, and I thought, I'm like, this is how he's able to connect with people, right? And that's what people. It wasn't written by him. Oh, comedians wrote it. Okay, well, that makes a lot more sense actually. But he did a good delivery. Like I thought it was pretty funny. I just saw clips of him. It was like a regurgitated processed version of it, right? I watched someone else reacting to it, to a montage of it. So. But that's funny to know that they weren't written by him. So, but anyways, without further ado, let's get into this clip here. Just while we wait for some people to fill in. And yeah, if you want to come debate me or Saul about this topic, I'm basically just advocating for Trump is not a dictator and everyone's being dramatic.
Okay. I'll argue with that too. Just so we're clear. I just feel like Justice is sick of arguing with me about this, so he's happy to see somebody else step into it with me.
According to most polls in the United States, this election is very close and could go either way. So let's unpack those polls and what to make of them. For that, we're turning now to Kaylee Rogers. She's a polling reporter with the New York Times, and she's also done reporting work as a senior reporter with CBC News. Good to have you back with CBC, Kaylee. Thanks for making time for us.
Oh, is it 2 cents?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Now you're with the New York Times. This is your beat, the polls. Make it make sense, Kaylee, because the polls were wrong in 2016, very, very wrong. And I think really since 2016, there is a great deal of skepticism when we look at those numbers and what the percentages are. How should we feel about polls in 2024?
Right. What a year to be the polling reporter at the New York Times. I will say, 2016, I think a lot of people remember that election as being the year that the polls were way off. And it's true that the state level polls that year had a lot of misses, and that's partly why there was some confusion over who was in the lead going into Election Day. But the national level polls actually weren't that bad. They were off by a couple points, but if you remember, Hillary Clinton actually did win the popular vote that year. She lost the election, of course, but that was because of the Electoral College. She did win the popular vote, and so the polls showing her in the lead there actually weren't that off. 2020 was actually slightly more.
So that event I was talking about, 2 cents in the chat was saying it's a long tradition for both Democrats and Republicans, and they poke fun and have someone write them jokes all lighthearted. Oh, okay. I thought they were pretty funny. Like, and like the things he was saying, he said, I think I don't want to say it in the first 5 minutes to get a part of the description here, but because I know YouTube might flag it a little bit if I start talking about that area of jokes, but I'll talk about it in a little bit, but it's pretty funny. Everyone should go check that out for themselves. The whole Trump, like almost roasting people bit.
Or off, the support for President Biden was overestimated, but people kind of forget that a little bit because Biden did go on to win, so they're like, oh, he was in the lead and he won, so the polls were right. The reality is that polls are always off a little bit, one way or the other. There's just no way to perfectly nail it when you're trying to poll a group of people that doesn't exist yet, which is who's going to vote on Election Day. And so that's just the reality of pre-election polling. I think that there's a lot of optimism that this year might be better, partly because some of the mistakes that led to those errors in 2016, for example, have been corrected, partly because 2022 polling in the midterms was some of the most accurate we've seen in decades. But we're going to have to wait and see just how accurate it is.
Okay, so let's talk about where the polls stand right now. Based on what I've seen, every poll we see, particularly in those key swing states, it's neck and neck. I mean, sometimes it's less than 0.5% in many of these cases. And the margin of error is like 2-3%. So what are we to make of those polls? What did that tell us about this election?
Yeah, it's really, really remarkable. Looking back even the last few decades, it's hard to find another example where this many polls were this close. As I mentioned, the national level polls, first of all, those are all also neck and neck. The national polling average for the times that we track.
Here, I'm actually just going to run to the bathroom, okay? I'll leave this playing.
Okay.
Right now has Harris at 49%, Trump at 48%. That's basically a tie. You call that a draw.
This is less eventful than I thought it would be,
statistically.
too.
And then, even
So they're gonna be
ignoring
coming
the
at Trump a
national
little
level
harder.
polls, because as I mentioned, whoever wins the popular vote doesn't necessarily win the election. You want to look at those key states where it's really going to determine things. And those are
Originally,
also
I thought it was
razor-thin
gonna be
margins,
CBC
less than a percentage point
dumping
in
all over
almost
Trump
every
here,
swing state.
but
Georgia,
it's
the
not
average
happening.
has him up.
When Saul's back,
has
we'll shut
Trump
this
up
off and we'll
two,
get right
Arizona,
into viewer
the average
calls.
has Trump up
And if
about
anyone's
two. But as you
waiting
mentioned,
to
the
hop
margin of
in,
error is around
basically,
2
if you
points
go to
as
the
well. So
voice
you
chat,
end
the
up
general
with
voice
what is
chat in
essentially a
Discord,
toss-up. It's
when
really,
we are
really
ready,
hard
we'll
for
start pulling
polls
people in.
to be
Me and Saul, we're gonna.
very
I want to
precise.
debate Saul.
It's a
I
really
do. Like, I'm
useful
going to be
tool,
talking to Saul
and
about
generally
stuff.
they're actually pretty accurate, but they're
it's
just
just,
not great at these super, super
waiting for him
close
to get back.
elections.
And we've
with
talked
getting
about
that
this
kind of
so
precision
much
that I
on
think
the
people
phone
wish
and
that they could.
Okay,
off
let me ask
stream
you a couple of
that
philosophical questions.
I'm curious to see
what is the
what you
purpose
guys have
of
to
these
say as
polls,
well.
and who do they serve
yeah, I'm going to
exactly?
be. We will be talking about those.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, honestly, and I
totally
totally understand the frustration,
back as well.
especially in an
We'll
election
start- we'll
that
just start
is
going
this
at it.
close, where they're not really going
Yeah,
to be
this
able
is
to give you the
boring. I
answer.
thought this was
Like,
gonna
you
be
need to
more inflammatory.
understand that with the numbers where they are, if nothing changes between now and election day, nobody can be surprised with either candidate winning, and winning by a lot. This is like a couple points away from one or the other winning handily. So this isn't like it's necessarily even going to be a close election once we get to election day. The thing about polling is that my defense of it is, if we didn't have polls,
We got a woman running for president. What are you talking about? We have to listen to
Oh,
her.
I didn't take it like that.
we
I
would
just
be
took it as like,
relying
why are we
on
listening to
everything
somebody
else.
talk?
So the vibes
And we're
and
not
what
arguing
campaigns
about
have
Trump.
to say.
That's
We're
what I
just
thought.
waiting for people to come in, and if you
What
guys
was
want
that
to
too?
hop
But
in the
you know,
Discord,
you know what, Saul, you're back. Let's just go right into it.
yeah, if he's ready
You know
to
what?
go, I'm ready to go.
No, I'll just go right into it as well. If anyone else wants to join Discord, join the voice chat too. But so reasons Trump is not a dictator. Okay, so here's mine. Let's go into it first, Saul. So basically, one of the main reasons I have is he has not made, while Trump has criticized the press and referred to journalists as enemies of the people, he has not taken any concrete steps to silence or suppress the media, even when he was president. He didn't actually go and introduce any censorship laws or push for any form of censorship, from what I understand.
Do you think he tried to? Do you know of any instances where he did try to censor people?
No, do you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there was actually
let's
one
go.
during the Twitter Inquisition after the Twitter files came out. There was actually not a single example of the Biden administration asking for them to take down anything aside. And I could be wrong. I didn't go through every single link because you can only look at so many pictures of Hunter Biden without his clothes on. But almost every single, actually, no, not almost every single tweet that I looked at that was requested to be taken down by the Biden administration in the Twitter files was a picture of Hunter Biden either engaging in sex or he was naked in the pictures. There is, however, a tweet from Chrissy Teigen, John Legend's wife, where she called Trump, and I know Justice doesn't like me using any cuss words in the stream, so for lack of a better way to say it, a P word ass B word. She called Trump that, and Trump actually sent to Twitter a request to take that tweet down. So,
Okay.
well, not that explicit. Like, there's that. And then,
Yeah, but he didn't try to do anything like legislative wise or try to move anything forward or enact some new censorship laws or anything like that or crack down on misinformation.
he did try to send the Justice Department after his political opponents while he was in office multiple times.
When?
In the beginning, he was trying to get the FBI director to go after Hillary Clinton and Comey
And Comey? Why Comey?
for investigating Trump.
Okay. And that was, and how
in
do
the
you know
beginning
that?
of his administration, I think it was in 2017.
Okay. So that's what your response is to that is you think because he
And
tried
I
to get a
think
tweet taken down.
He verbally, and I mean, this is the thing is where I say that people have a double standard, right? Because if Kamala Harris was saying, we're going to suspend the Constitution to investigate voter fraud because I lost the election, everybody would rightfully be really upset about that, right?
Like, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that there's this super lack of accountability on Trump's end.
I don't know. I just think it's like you're almost reaching a little bit. It just seems like in that department, at least with like when it comes to censorship, at least.
Well, can you give me an equivalent policy on the other end?
1 second.
This is my point, right? It's just that, sure, not as bad as it could be, but worse than anybody else.
Okay. House Democrats blocked an attempt to bring transparency to the federal.
Okay, so my 2 cents here.
Communications Commission. Sorry, the FCC, indicating a desire to shield the public from conservative thought.
Sorry, what was this?
So this is allegedly, but the House Democrats blocked an attempt to bring transparency to the FCC, indicating a desire to shield public from conservative thought, is what the quote is from this one article. However, what I'm more talking about is they did block an attempt to bring more transparency to the FCC, and just leave it at that. You know, you can make what assumptions you want, whether or not it was for, you know, completely malicious intentions.
Okay,
but
so
it seems like, sorry.
Before you said I was reaching, I'm just gonna say this is a little bit of a reach,
so
right?
you think that I'm just responding to your question?
I
here
agree. No, I'm
of like an idea of how they're kind of pro censorship, right? And like I feel like the Democrats and the Canadian Liberals share that in common. Is they seem pro censorship and they want to protect us, right? Like the White House confirmed regular communication with social media companies to monitor content deemed misinformation, and the Biden administration officials demanded information on COVID-19 misinformation. So that was like a good example at the time of how when you had Trump in office during that same pandemic.
Yeah, this was during Trump's
There wasn't
presidency.
a huge. No, that was after though. Like he wasn't president for all of COVID, was he? No, he wasn't.
For the first two years.
Yeah, but this is
when
the
he left
Biden
office.
administration enacted this though.
What did they enact?
Like I don't know where you'd call it like the end, like when COVID really ended, but like
yeah, there
like,
was
like
COVID
over.
was still a thing for Biden.
But there's also like creation of the Disinformation Governance Board. So the Department of Homeland Security established a board to govern disinformation, implying a desire to regulate and potentially censor certain information.
Potentially
so
censor, right?
That was done by the Biden administration, under the Biden administration, though. So your Ministry of Truth coming out there.
What does this mean, though? When you have
I'm just trying to argue
board.
that they're pro-censorship. You said, how are they pro-censorship? Give me some points of how they're pro-censorship, and that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Like,
okay,
these are
but I
reasons
mean,
I think the Democrats are pro-censorship.
In order to fully explore that, we need to kind of go into each individual example, right? Like, so when you make a disinformation board, what is that really about?
Hey, what's up, Luca? Oh yeah, Luca wanted to call it Trump Power Hour. I forgot to mention that. I thought it was a good way to do it.
Also, I wanted to respond to 2 cents in chat. He was talking about the Twitter files earlier. I really encourage you to go through and read the Twitter files, because I did read the Twitter files. And if you look, which one was it? Matt Taibbi, he specifically says that the Biden administration never actually demanded any tweets be taken down. Left-leaning advisors threatened to pull their funding unless Elon complied with their demands. You're talking about left-leaning corporations. They were going to pull their ad revenue from there, right? Democrats are more pro-censorship than Republicans. I'm arguing against that. I disagree. Guys. I think today's Republicans under Donald Trump are clearly more pro-censorship.
Yeah, like my thing is, I just think that how are the Democrats not the party of censorship? Like, you know, they're almost toe in toe with the Canadian Liberals. Like when it comes to their ideologies in this sense. Like we were just watching the foreign interference inquiry earlier, and there was that one judge in there who was saying that she thinks that what was the exact quote? It was she says, "Is it naive of us to protect free speech at all costs?" Something like that. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, that's terrifying to hear. And I feel like that kind of ideology is rampant in the Canadian Liberal Party and Le Bloc and possibly even the NDP. And, you know, I think that is shared within the Democratic Party in the US. From what I see of their public rhetoric, from their rallies, just what they stand on. Why don't you try and prove to me that the Democrats aren't pro censorship compared to Trump. Like, to me, how does Trump seem more pro censorship? Like, if he was, he would have got those tweets taken down. He would have done more than just requested some tweets to be taken down. Like, don't tons of people do that? Like,
sorry, let's rewind for a second, because we don't have even one specific example of what you're asking me to provide for Trump from the Democrats.
Of how is he not? Because I said that my first thing I brought up was he did not take any big steps to censor media.
That was my thing. Democrats?
But I'm saying, yeah, to me, the Democrats seem like they have. I just read off a bunch of examples. Were you not listening?
We tried to go into those examples and you said, well, I'm just listing examples.
Okay, well, which one stuck out to you? Was it the blocking transparency from the FCC? Was it, collaborating with social media companies? Like, was it creation of the disinformation governance board? What
are those? Where are those things censoring the media?
Like, what do you mean?
Like having a disinformation board saying that this is an intentional disinformation campaign from a foreign government being pushed into our population. We're not censoring it. They're not censoring it, right? Is anybody actually being censored by those laws? I'm
not dodging the question, but I wanted to get our viewers in on this. So Isaiah in the chat, Democrats generally place a stronger emphasis on limiting hate speech and disinformation. It's common knowledge. Yeah, that's kind of what I would say too, but I understand Saul wanting some specific examples here. But Luca, he says, Saul, question for you. So what's your question here, Luca?
Also, if you guys want to come into the Discord, it's not open to absolutely everybody, but everybody that we know from the chat is obviously welcome.
Yeah, pretty much everybody in here at this moment in time, like everyone I see in the chat, like would be welcome in here. It's more just like, if some random new guy comes in again, I might be skeptical because of what happened last time. But I know a lot of you guys have been here for multiple streams. So yeah, any of you want to come in, by all means.
Can I ask you why you personally are so invested in the U.S. election? I wish I wasn't, but I really do think that Donald Trump is like a unique danger to the world. I think that him getting elected in America is going to lead us on a downward spiral that is inevitably going to affect Canada as well.
Okay,
that's him getting elected shows. I think that it shows that people aren't held accountable for trying to overthrow democracy. They won't be held accountable for trying to suspend the Constitution. They won't be held accountable for lying, for committing crimes while in office.
What's happening now in Canada?
What do you mean?
Like, what's happening already? Like, how is that not already taking place by the people in power now?
Well, okay, so again,
Fraser, dude. Yeah, dude, we gotta get Fraser in here, dude. What's up, man?
Fraser, you're welcome to join.
He was one of our firsts. It was one of our first when we talked about the Trump stuff. I swear he just saw we were talking about Trump and he hopped in. I don't think he's been in a stream since.
Yeah, if you want to hop in and talk about this, you're more than welcome. But to rewind to my original point, if you can point out a specific thing that Trudeau has done to limit speech or whatever it is that you want, I can give you an example, I think, of
Isaiah
Trump doing the same thing or worse.
Oh, and just a reminder, guys.
Join the waiting room and we'll pull you up into a room where we can all talk.
And I put some basic guidelines in the description. It's basically just so we don't get, it's just YouTube guidelines. That's all it is. Like, that's the only thing I care about. Okay, no worries, dude.
Any area. I'm open to any area. And like, to be fair here, I don't like Justin Trudeau. I don't think he's a great leader. But I think that
Isaiah's
all the criticisms
typing a bunch of stuff in
Discord.
If you want to just read out what he's saying. And then
in response to the spread of hate speech and misinformation, platforms like Facebook and Twitter banned accounts linked to white nationalist groups. Okay, so none of this has anything to do with the government. This is Facebook and Twitter.
You just dismissed the whole thing.
Because he's not talking about the government. Often after Democratic pressure to act more aggressively on these issues, Senator Elizabeth Warren and other prominent Democrats have advocated to change to Section 230 to ensure platforms take responsibility for harmful content, including hate speech. So I'm assuming this didn't actually get passed. A Democrat in Congress or in the Senate advocating for a bill doesn't really necessarily mean anything. Especially since, like, a lot of these bills, they'll become something else when they get actually put into law, if they are at all. I don't know enough of what specifically Elizabeth Warren or as Donald Trump likes to call her
Oh,
Pocahontas.
P.S. in the chat, Zuckerberg letter.
Zuckerberg letter, where he said that they warned them about a potential misinformation story.
No,
right?
but weren't they forced to comply by the FBI?
Nope.
Wasn't that the whole thing he said on Lex
They were
Fridman?
not forced.
What? How are they not? Well, were they the way he said it is like they were forced to comply.
No.
And he said that
they
like
weren't.
on Lex Fridman, I'm pretty sure it was.
If you can find evidence of that, I'll concede right now.
Okay.
Because then I'm wrong. But I like everything that I've read, there is no actual force being applied in any of those instances. They did warn them about the story. And to be fair, you know, a blind computer shop repairman finding a laptop that belongs to the president-elect or somebody running for president's son.
Didn't Jim Jordan?
The letter said he was pressured by the government. What will you do if he wins the election? I don't know. Just hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah,
Be really
that's what I'm reading
disappointed.
too. PS is like that's what I was under the impression happened there as well.
I'll just think that there's no accountability. There's zero accountability. You can do anything you want, and as long as you're charismatic and appeal to a base, you'll be fine. You can do whatever you want, and that's what it'll tell Trump too, and every future president. They'll know that they won't be held accountable for any of these things.
So Isaiah in the Discord, okay, let's do it properly. What is censorship? To me, you know, if you want to define censorship, that's
a
back
good-
what means all we're talking
yeah.
about.
I would like to do that.
You know, like what is the textbook definition? Let's find that. What is the textbook definition of it? The act, process, or practice of censoring. And then to go back, okay, well, what is censoring definition? Doesn't really actually give you a
Here, I'll open up
formal
the
definition.
Zuckerberg letter.
Prevention of disturbing or painful thoughts or feelings from reaching consciousness, except in what the heck is that? Oh, that's psychology censorship. Oh, that's a psychology term, I guess. Okay, never mind. I thought it'd be easy to define censorship. If you look that up, I thought that'd be a really easy thing to ask. I guess that's maybe I should go back to just Google searching instead of using this.
I'm going to read
search
this
tool.
Zuckerberg letter.
Okay, well, I want to give a textbook definition of censorship first. Yeah, because that letter did kind of make it seem like he was a little pressured there. The suppression or prohibition of any parts of books, films, news, etc. that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to security. So basically, covering up, from what I get, that is suppressing information based on the principle of safety, I guess, is what the reasoning is here in Google. And I feel like that's changed over time. I wonder if or a threat to security is a new addition to the definition there. Because it just seems there's political, moral, religious, and corporate censorship, suppression of regular speech or communication. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So like to me, he didn't really seem asking for a tweet to be taken down. Like he didn't force them to take the tweet down.
Well, this is the same as the Zuckerberg.
You know what I
stuff,
mean?
right?
Like it
Pressured
doesn't seem
and
like
force.
it's forced.
Are different. I agree.
There are no safe spaces. Yeah, 2 cents. Like that's the thing is like the idea that we're gonna have like, you know, stress-free zones just doesn't really exist, right? That's why I think
What
even
about,
Saul agrees with that.
Yeah.
Google
no,
is
I'm
wrong.
not pro
Let's-
censorship at all. I just think Trump's worse for free speech than the Democrats for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think Google is giving us a weird definition, but basically it's the effort to suppress any speech. That's what my definition of it is if you're suppressing any information, speech, books, films, this
Or
show,
punishing people
anything,
for their-
right? Like it's
Punishing people for expression. Yeah.
well, that's suppressing in a way, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's just thanks, PS. Yeah, we're still new to it, so we're gonna try and evolve it as we go along. But at this point, this is the first time we've done something like this, I think. So bear with us on figuring out the kinks of having it organized. But in the Discord, Isaiah was the one who said the definition of censorship is wrong. What
My
so
2
you mean,
cents.
Saul?
What do you mean, Saul? What do I mean by what?
So like, let's just start off. Why don't you start listing off why you don't like Trump and why you think he is more like Trudeau?
More like true. I think he's worse.
Or that he's worse than Trudeau.
Yeah.
That you think
the
he's
number
worse
one
than Trudeau.
thing would obviously be January 6th and all of the events leading up to January 6th, where I think that Trump concocted a plan along with privately hired lawyers, Eastman, Clark, Giuliani, these guys were all involved in it. I think Steve Bannon was involved in the planning of it. They basically had this plan where they were going to forge documents and send fake electors from states that were disputed in their opinion, despite having already gone to court, being reviewed by Republican judges. Even his own attorney general, Bill Barr, had said that there was no evidence that the election had been changed by interference. And Trump, because he's Trump, he couldn't take no for an answer. He found his own lawyers. He made up a whole plan. And they were going to send these fake electorates to the Capitol on January 6th. You can see him reference these electorates in his speech that he does before the Capitol, the one he likes to quote, the one part of the speech where he said peacefully and patriotically at the very end, despite the entire other part of the speech being about how we need to fight because they're going to destroy our country. And we all need to march on the Capitol and make sure they know and make sure Mike Pence knows he has to do the right thing and that there will be consequences if they don't. And my biggest question is, yeah, I guess, anyways, you're asking me what my biggest criticisms are. That I think January 6th was, and all the events leading up to January 6th are extremely disqualifying. I think they're the nail in the coffin.
What do you think about him accusing them of destroying evidence?
What evidence?
So there was a meme circulating online that claims the J6 Select Committee destroyed evidence compiled against Trump. However, the committee's report and released documents demonstrate a thorough investigation, including videos, transcripts. There is no, okay, so it's just, it never went past just the memes and social media claims. Never mind then on that one. But what about just his characterization of the event, of how he does reiterate time and time again about his peaceful and patriotic and peaceful, he said? Or peacefully and patriotically
is the one part of the speech that he likes to quote. But I mean, we can actually, I'm going to
so
find,
what,
if you
does
want,
that
we
mean
can go over
nothing?
this
Does
whole
that mean
speech.
nothing? If he was telling everybody to be peaceful and patriotic, what
does that mean?
Like,
what does that mean?
How does that incite some kind of attack, right?
What
how
are
is
they
that
protesting?
inciting? Well, they're protesting that, they were accused, like, how
the
else
certification of the vote.
You know, if the vote was compromised, how else would you go about doing it, though?
Through
That's
the
the
courts,
thing.
through your attorney general, through the White House lawyers, through all
What
the
if the
channels
courts
that
are
he
corrupt?
already exhausted. He went down every avenue and everybody told him he was wrong and he just kept on pushing. He refused to take no for an answer.
Okay, so you think this was
there was no coordination or preparation involved. That's hilarious because I don't know if have you ever looked up the Eastman memos? Look up the Eastman
hilarious,
memos.
It's hilarious. That's what he says. I don't think he actually finds it that funny. He's not laughing. So
the coup memo. I'll see if I can find an actual PDF of this. Privileged and confidential January 6th scenario. So this is written by Trump's lawyer, John Eastman. 7 states have transmitted dual slates of electors to the president of the Senate. The 12th Amendment merely provides the president of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate. We don't have to read this whole thing unless you guys want to. But basically, he lays out a plan here on what they're going to do on January 6th. VP Pence, presiding over the joint session, or Senate pro tempore glasser, begins to open and count the ballots, starting with Alabama, without conceding that the procedure specified by the Electoral Count Act of going through the states alphabetically is required. When he gets to Arizona, he announces that he has multiple slates of electors, and so he's going to defer the decision on that until finishing the other states. This would be the first break with the procedure set out in the act. At the end, he announces that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. That means the total number of electors appointed, the language of the 12th Amendment, is 454. This reading of the 12th Amendment has been advanced by Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe. A majority of the electors appointed would therefore be 228. There are at this point 232 votes for Trump, 222 votes for Biden. Pence then gavels President Trump as reelected. Howells, of course, from the Democrats, who now claim, contrary to Tribe's prior position, that 270 is required. So Pence says, fine. Pursuant to the 12th Amendment, no candidate has achieved the necessary majority. That sends the matter to the House, where the votes shall be taken by the states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. Republicans currently control 26 of the state delegations. The bare majority needed to win that vote. President Trump is reelected there as well. One last piece, assuming the Electoral Count Act process is followed and upon the objections to the Arizona slates, The two houses break into their separate chambers. We should not allow the electoral count. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. You can read the whole thing if you want.
Well, anyways, let's take a step from that. Trump did not incite violence. If people act based on someone else's verbiage, we are all in big trouble. That was 2 cents in the chat there. And I kind of read that and I thought, this is what I was recently watching Matt Walsh on Joe Rogan. And I thought it was so right. He had one point that really stuck out to me was that we're in this age where people who didn't speak the words get to determine the meaning and not the person who spoke them. And I think that's so powerful because you start to think about it. Is that kind of what we're going through in society? Is
Isn't
almost
that what
like
you do in a
now
courtroom?
your peers get to determine what your words mean and not you?
That's a courtroom.
That's a courtroom.
That happens in a courtroom too, right?
So you're saying that should be applied to all of society then?
In cases where someone's being accused of criminal conduct, absolutely.
Okay. So I think there's a problem because in certain situations, yeah, like how is somebody like all of a sudden you're liable for things you say if you're not telling people to be violent and then they go and be violent, how are you liable for that? If he's telling people
What did he want
go
them to do?
this, go do that, like it's obviously a different story, but he wasn't. He said peacefully and patriotically.
Only at one
how
part.
many
Every
times?
other part of the speech was amping them up to believe that this was the event. We are going to win back our country.
Let's
We're gonna
move on
stop
from
the
January 6th.
certification of
What
the
about
vote.
the assassination attempts? Explain that to me. Why is he
I don't
such
know
a
why we're
target?
switching to the assassination attempts. I want to focus.
Well, why
on
is he such a
January 6th.
target? Because I think it shows something about how much hate is peddled about him, right? And you don't really realize because the mainstream media does have just a real raging hate boner for them, right?
So
and
do
it's
I.
just like yeah, and you do too. It's just it gets to the point where I think it blinds you and other people and creates this air of drama that just doesn't need to be there. And I think this melodrama and this fear of him is going to put somebody worse than him in charge. And I think, you could argue the same thing in reverse 100%. But this is the argument with Trump and Polyev is saying people hate Trudeau and Polyev. People hate Trudeau so much and they want Polyev and he's going to make everything better. But in the past, we've seen in history, sometimes that person who comes after someone like Trudeau is worse than Trudeau. And I'm thinking it might be the same thing when it comes to when you have Trump and the Democrats, right? Cryptomiri in the chat. Trump makes me want McDonald's. Yeah, you know what? I imagine he really does actually eat McDonald's once in a while. Like I don't think it's above him.
I think he eats it a lot.
I love McDonald's personally.
I
love it a little.
too.
I like it a little too much. It's cheap. It tastes delicious. It's like it's quick. It's just it's you don't realize how much sugar's in it because they counteract the sweetness with salt. But besides, this isn't a nutrition podcast on fast food. This is about Trudeau and Trump. So we're going to bring it back to there. He did use the words peacefully and patriotically how many times in that whole thing during January 6th is what I said about that. But we're moving on. I want to move on to the assassination attempts because I think that it does kind of show what's going on, why people think there is this such thing as Trump derangement syndrome, which I don't even really think is you can't really label something like that a syndrome, really.
Here? Can we just stop for 1 second? Because we just said Trump is not responsible for his words and how they affect
I'm saying
people,
he's not responsible,
right? He's not
for
responsible
people
for the
who
way his
become
words affect
violent.
people.
Yeah, but if he is not if he's telling people to be peaceful and patriotic and they end up being violent,
So
that's not his
when
fault.
we talk about the assassination,
Were they telling people to be peaceful and patriotic, or were they just
who
saying
told
Trump
the
is
guy
basically
to shoot
Hitler?
someone? No one said to shoot Trump.
Well, I'm just saying, how much do we see Rachel Maddow and what was it, Jake Tapper and a couple others just constantly basically refer to him as like the next Hitler?
Okay.
Oh, yes. Hold back a sneeze, guys. Oh.
Also, his chief of staff, his actual current VP mate, said he was worse than Hitler. And people who've worked with him have said he's a fascist. This is a common theme. Lots of people say this because they see the similarities.
What would have changed JD? What do you think changed JD Vance's mind? Because from what I saw, from what JD Vance has said, is that it was actually spending time working with Trump and meeting him. He eventually formulated a different opinion past the narrative that was floating around at the time. And that's, I think, what exactly kind of what he was saying. So, like, he ended up having more personal experiences in that department, and that's what changed his mind, which I think is more powerful than just,
Well, Well,
him saying like, oh, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just, he went in depth into his reasoning, right? He didn't just brush
Kind of.
off the question when he was asked it.
kind
Because
of.
they brought this at him before of when he was saying stuff like, I don't remember him saying the exact quote that Trump was worse than Hitler, but I remember him not being a fan of Trump. Examples of, like what are some examples of Trump being a dictator, Saul? Like where does this
Being
come
like
from?
Hitler or being a dictator?
Just being a dictator in general.
The way he runs his cabinet, the way he fires anybody who disagrees with him, throws them under the bus and says that he didn't agree with them ever, and he's always thought they were not that good at their job, and that everything they say about me now is just because I fired them.
Okay.
I can give more.
Yeah, please do.
The way he talks about the threat
2 cents.
from within the country, the threat from within is the way he phrases it. The way he's talked about certain types of immigrants poisoning the blood of the country. While this isn't, I don't think, enough of a reason on its own, I think in the context of that with everything else and the way he does things, I actually don't think he's a racist. I'm also going to say that. I don't think he is explicitly racist. I don't see anything. I think he says things that can encourage people to be racist, but he personally, I don't know. I think he just knows that it plays well with his audience. I think
So you think his audience is a bunch of racists?
I think that people have racist sentiments that they aren't fully aware of, for sure.
Okay. But like
And that
define
it's easy to harp
racism
on
then.
on those fears.
Like, what
that
is
they
your
have.
definition? Like what's your definition of racism?
My definition of racism. I think that there's conscious and unconscious racism. I think most racism is unconscious. People don't even really think about it. It's just the way that like sometimes you'll see a guy and you expect him to speak with like a thick Korean accent, and then you hear him talk and he speaks like totally normal English, and you're like, oh,
How is that racist though? That's
It's
just
not.
your brain
it's not.
trying to
No,
connect
but I'm
dots,
just saying
right?
it's the same type of thing where you expect somebody to act a certain way because of what they look like.
But that to me is just profiling, and that's what
Well, then
police do with
racism,
people that wear a
then,
hoodie. You know what I mean? Like,
if you
like,
don't-
I remember, like,
I
just
don't know
thinking
why
back,
we're talking
like-
about unconscious bias right now, though. When we were talking about January 6th, we moved on to the assassination attempt. But it was funny for me because we pivoted right from Trump is not responsible for how people take his words immediately to the media is responsible for Trump being shot.
No, I'm just saying they were pushing a lot of hate, and I'm not saying. I'm just saying, what about
So is
that?
Trump.
Like, what do you think about that?
You don't
know,
think Trump pushes hate?
But this is why I brought it up, because you're saying of what he was saying, he could be held liable, even though he wasn't explicitly telling people to be violent. That he could somehow be liable. Now, that's what I was saying to the mainstream media
have
is
you
that
heard that
I
whole
don't think
speech?
that.
Or have you only heard his quote where he says peacefully and
I
quietly?
watched the speech because
The whole speech, the 56-minute speech.
I believe so. Yeah, the old January 6th stuff. I watched a lot of it.
I don't even think
I
I've
watched some of it as it was happening too. I was like following it as it was going on because I was like, "What the hell?" Like it looked like the U.S. was falling apart. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, it was like what people were looking at when they saw downtown Ottawa during the trucker convoy and when the RCMP stepped in and stuff. I think that's what people were kind of like, "Whoa, what's going on in Canada?" It was like one of those moments for the U.S. Right? And I was just watching it, and I never got the feeling at all that he was telling people to be violent one bit. Like I got the idea that he was, he didn't explicitly say all he was basically saying is like, to me, I just thought he was literally saying his thoughts angrily into tweets.
What do you think he wanted people to do after that speech? Because he told them to march on the Capitol.
I think protest.
He said that he was gonna go
I
with
think
them
he was
as well.
encouraging a large protest,
Against
and then
what?
it went bad.
What were they
And
protesting
then
against?
the election results, or asking for a recount, or asking for a
Certification.
look.
It was
for
the
them to invest-
certification of the vote. They'd already investigated the
Okay.
results.
Okay, so basically, who investigated the results though?
The courts, Trump's own attorney general, his Justice Department.
So 2 cents in the chat here. Biden, Pelosi, Kamala have all said they would like to punch Trump, take him out back, and beat him, etc. So what about that's the thing
You
too.
were
I heard
okay
stuff
with
like
violence, destruction of property, assaults, citizens after the Obama. Wait, what? You think that I was okay with the BLM riots? Because I wasn't. I don't think any destruction of property, especially private property, is ever okay. in
Was
any
that in response-
protest ever. I think it's always harmful to your own movement. I think
Who
the
was that in
BLM
response to,
protests
sorry?
were Pelosi owns massive real estate holdings in San Francisco. Okay. Just give me 1 second here because I'm just trying to block the ads on this site because I don't want them to dox me. So
I'll be right back. Just 1 second.
we're gonna read through a little bit of this Trump speech, okay? And by the way, does anybody believe that Joe had 80 million votes? Does anybody believe that? He had 80 million computer votes. It's a disgrace. You know what? We can probably even just find Trump saying this himself. Let's just do that. Biden, Pelosi, Kamala have all said they would like to punch Trump, take him out back and beat him. And the organizers laundered money from donations into $1 million houses. That's obviously bad. I condemn those BLM things. The BLM riots, the stealing of donations, those are all bad. How do I see all the comments? I'm not receiving them all. I don't know. I'm hopefully getting as many as I... Trump does say a lot of stupid stuff that he shouldn't. How do you measure unconscious bias? You said unconscious racism. Talking about the exchange of power in 2016 between Obama and Trump teams. You mean Obama went to Trump's inauguration, right? They shook hands and everything. He transferred power. Even Hillary, that night, she conceded that she lost the election. She even said that she wishes or she hopes that he does well. Later on, she got a little unhinged and said she thought it was stolen from her through manipulation or whatever. But I mean, there was no accusations of direct voter interference or like faking the vote results. She never said that. She did say she thought that the Russians were influencing the public or whatever, which actually did happen. I don't know if you guys remember the Cambridge Analytica stuff when Facebook got in a lot of trouble, but there was actually pretty large, and everybody makes fun of it, right? Like they'll say, oh, the Russians were making memes and they changed the election. But essentially, that's all she really accused them of, right? There's no way to tell how much that it would actually affect an election. So I don't put much merit in it. But at the end of the day, Hillary conceded power. She doesn't dispute that Trump actually won the election. He did. You talk about January 6th being violent, but the same occurred street side in 2016. I'm going to need to see a source on that. Because as far as I know, on January 6th, when the power transitioned, none of that was delayed. Trump's transition to Biden was the first transition of power in American history that was delayed due to violence. Trump ellipse speech full. There we go. Do I have a transcript? Media. Okay, I bet you the C-SPAN. Did you know that Benny Thompson, who led the congressional committee hearing, voted against the 2016 certification? Hypocritical, at least. Voted against the certification. What do you mean? Isn't that like just a normal thing? Is this something that's illegal or atypical? Or that would have any actual effect on the transition of power? Because as far as I'm aware, Trump to Biden was the first time ever in American history that this process has been delayed. And it was specifically due to violence from Trump supporters that went there directly after a Trump rally where he told them that the country was being stolen and that they had to make sure that Mike Pence did what he needed to do and certify the electorates, the rightful electorates. He denied the certification of Trump's win. Who did? Benny Thompson.
Yeah, I'm not either 2 cents. I think some of them are just coming up on the screen, and because YouTube's got, I think, or if you put too many messages in the chat, it like temporarily censors you from everybody, but it'll show up on your side. But for whatever reason, this overlay will still pick it up. So if you watch the screen, it'll come up there on some of them. I think Saul's just too sidetracked in his own thoughts, so he needs to be telling people who's saying what, so people can understand what's going on.
Hey, so my 2 cents. Are you talking about Benny Thompson doing this in 2004? January 6th committee chairman
the Portland
Benny
riots
Thompson
are pretty
objected
crazy
to the 2004 election, which, to be fair, also Al Gore contested the results of that election. His demand for a recount was denied, and he conceded. He said, okay. And Bush won. I watched 72 days of Portland riots. That doesn't matter because the Portland riots weren't delaying the certification of the vote. Like, it does matter. I obviously don't think that's okay. I would disapprove of those riots as well. I condemn them. I think they're horrible. I think anybody who commits that type of violence is an anti-American piece of poop. Donald Trump's own MP or VP Mike Pence and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell certified Biden election. Yeah, exactly. Trump didn't, though, right? I don't have a problem with Mike Pence. I think Mike Pence is an American hero. I think he's single-handedly stopped that from becoming a lot worse than it could have. Because if he had been like JD Vance, who says that he would have done what Trump wanted him to do in that scenario, and if he had done that, we could have had a way bigger problem on our hands. But because Mike Pence is a real American who believes in the Constitution, who takes his oath seriously, who believes in democracy, he certified the vote, and Joe Biden became the president because of Mike Pence. Not because of Donald Trump. It's despite Donald Trump. I'm still trying to find this stupid speech. C-SPAN.
Yeah, I feel like we're not even comparing Trudeau here, so change the title of the stream. Let me know if you're okay with that.
I just think it's
Trump,
a good way to frame it. Because I think
this is basically what it is it's Saul and it's Trump is a dictator, and we're all trying to change his mind here. So, so I feel like this has become more than just comparing those two together. So Cryptomeria in the chat, it's fine, Saul, you weren't as involved with the states as I was.
I've
January 6th wasn't like that
closely. January 6th.
I would appreciate if you guys got more things you want to say about this stuff. You can you could also come into the voice comms and Discord if you want, or just chime in the YouTube chat, whatever works for you guys. Stooges.
The fifth president of the United States of America.
Some people in here for sure.
President.
We ain't changing anything. Well, we're trying to talk about it too, right? That's the idea of it. It's more than like, I don't think you guys are really gonna win here with Saul. For me, I don't think Trump's a dictator. I think he's more of just a really hyped up. What an absolute
disgrace that this could be happening.
He's just trying to combat with information here, right? We're just trying to get.
I would budge if anybody had anything to actually show me that I think is.
Oh, okay.
Convincing enough. I'm trying to read what this guy's saying here.
Well, why don't you try and support what you're saying here? Because,
stolen. Yeah, it was stolen. Would it support what? Because I was going to watch some of this January 6th speech so you could see that it wasn't just peacefully and patriotically. Like, he had a lot to say.
And he looked at Mike Pence, and I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so.
The thing is, though, where's the evidence of that?
Because if Mike Pence does the right thing,
let's put some stuff up here.
You can actually see do you want to see the fake electorates they wrote?
Like, can we play the parts of the speech on stream? Like, can we do that?
I think so. Why wouldn't you be able to?
I don't know. I just want to make sure we can.
This is on Global. They're the only ones I could find that had the full speech on here.
Okay. Win the election. All he has to do. This is
exactly like it says in the memo that Eastman wrote.
From the number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to revote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people. And
how is this
I just
inciting
spoke
violence?
to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage.
What's he saying?
What takes
What's he
courage
saying?
is to do nothing. That takes courage.
He wants
And
Mike Pence to do something, right? What does he want him to do? I'm not trying to change his mind, so I don't need evidence for my position. Okay, well, I don't know why you changed your mind if you didn't have any evidence. That's kind of my point. I'm not even trying to be mean. I just think that, like, a lot of the time people just kind of, whenever you actually show them this stuff, they're like, oh, well, shrug. You wouldn't care
well,
if Trudeau was doing this?
Saul, you should read the guidelines in
For
the
what?
description here. Respect all participants'
okay,
and opinions, even if they differ from your own.
Congress has
You're being
already
kind of
established
a real
the manipulation
DYCK
of
here.
Jan 6. In what way?
Yeah,
Because
like
there was
what George
offers.
is
They
saying
were
here.
allowed to have whatever Republicans they wanted on that committee, as long as they weren't directly involved in the January 6th stuff or implicated in it. So that's why people are all mad that Liz Cheney was on it, because she wasn't implicated in it, because she didn't agree with Trump that the election was stolen from him. July 13th and 24th was way worse than 6th. We need different options. Yeah. And I think that until you have better options, you should not vote for the guy who wants to throw out democracy and the Constitution and free speech. And
How does he want to throw out the Constitution, though?
oh, he tweeted it on Truth Social.
They wanted to throw out the Constitution. They literally wanted to throw it out.
Well, not throw it out, but suspend it.
There's 40,000 hours of J6 from different angles.
Yep. Which is why I don't agree with the people who say that it was all police letting people in. We literally have actual footage of the people who first broke in. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and the Democratic Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections.
Okay, exactly. Like, how is that calling? That just sounds like he's calling for a protest, right?
He
Like,
said can you imagine anybody else doing this? Or saying
yeah,
this?
it's just they're calling for a protest. Like, I
No,
feel like
that's
you're
not a protest.
I feel like
He
you're
just said
painting this
suspend
like
the
air of
Constitution.
aggression. Pence has the ability to send the electors back. That's a lie. What's a lie here, George? But yeah, no, I just think that you're adding this air of like anger and violence to him, and I think that that's not really there. That like aggression in his words, I think, doesn't actually exist, and that's where people are trying to paint it, because I think it's just an easier narrative that he's a dictator than that he is not. Because if he's not, then what he's saying is a lot more uncomfortable than
Do you think
what
Trudeau
I think.
is a dictator?
Well, I know. I think Trudeau failed at his authoritative measures, and
I would say
he's
the
on his
same
way out
thing
now.
with Trump.
I liked Trump's border policies. Yeah, like,
Well,
so
Trump's
let's talk about border
was
policy here. So
largely
comparing-
helped by the COVID stuff, right? As soon as
violent
COVID
parts were staged.
Trump's,
So George is saying in the chat here.
the
Yeah,
violent
even
parts
if,
were staged. By who?
But
Because
anyways,
people were convicted in court of breaking into the Capitol. The Proud Boys were the first people in. They had a whole plan to break into the Capitol before January 6th even happened. And they were actually in talks with Roger Stone, who was directly worked with Trump, was pardoned by Trump during Trump's administration.
okay. Now, what about with the fake electors and stuff? What about that? Like, so who here in the chat knows about the fake electors thing that happened behind the scenes? So we always talk about the riot on J6. We always talk about what happened at the Capitol, but we don't talk about what happened with one side is lying in that whole thing. Like clearly there's someone's lying. And that's the whole fake lectures thing.
There's all the courts, the DOJ, or Donald Trump, who you want to believe. That's the options there. So either Trump is lying or every single judge who reviewed the cases and every single member of the DOJ that reviewed the cases, all these were working for Trump. A lot of those judges were appointed by Trump. FBI agents were identified in the 40K hours of footage. I don't understand why that matters. Are we talking about what's that guy's name again? Ray Epps?
Oh, Ray. Well, that was confirmed. That wasn't he charged officially or something now? Because he was like, or wasn't he confirmed? Or isn't he like the only one that didn't get charged? Like I thought it was confirmed that he was a instigator or informant of some sort.
There was one clip from the night before on January 5th where he said something like, we're going to go in there or something. And every other clip of him shows him trying to calm everybody down from what I've seen. I don't. Yeah. And the other thing too is that we're going to say Trump doesn't have any sway over these people. We can't blame him for what happened, but Ray Epps was somehow able to rile everybody up and get them to run into the Capitol.
My 2 cents in the chat. Agents opened windows to allow people in the building.
No, there's a video of people smashing the windows open. And 6 smash windows.
Oh, can we play that on stream? Please make sure before we play it.
I've seen it on stream. This is the initial breach.
Okay, but is that the only window?
This is the first window that they broke through.
Yeah, where are the official charges against Trump? Why is he not incarcerated?
Because his lawyers argued that he's immune from all prosecution, and the Supreme Court agrees with Trump right now because he elected 3 members.
His lawyer won the case in a court, so we should respect that unless it's the Supreme Court with Trump's lawyer.
Well, it's kind of an interesting interpretation of the result of the Constitution. It's the first time that this has ever been applied.
So I was saying 2 cents. I think there's more than one window.
Yeah, of course there's more than one window. Find me the first one. Because this is the first one. This is the documented first entry into the building. The time when they moved the gates, that was after this. Who proved that? Who would you accept to have proved it? Because we can look at whoever you trust. Aside from Donald Trump himself, who do you trust on this? Look, I don't have a horse in this race, but come on now. But see, that's
that's how I feel sometimes, Luke. I get to that point where I'm just like, my whole thing personally, I just think everyone's being a little dramatic about it. Like I don't think he's some hero and he's going to lead us into a new dawn or a new golden age.
What's the line? At what point would you admit that he was trying to overthrow the election?
Like I said, if he wasn't, to me, he wasn't inciting violence there. And what if he really believed that he was having the election stolen from him? Like, what would you do?
Sorry,
if the election was really being stolen from him, but like, what do you do in the moment? Because didn't he do something because you can't do that in the moment. You can't go to the courts in the moment, can you?
Yeah, you can. They did. They they brought all their evidence forward to the courts. The courts looked at the full video footage. You can actually see too, Rudy Giuliani testimony.
Yeah, we're only doing this because I thought you guys in the chat wanted this.
Yeah, we thought we were all going to come into
it because I was so tired of it just taking over other streams of Saul and me just somehow diverging into this all the time. So I was like, let's just get it all out, get it all over our system, and then yeah. It's hard because we got to make sure we can find clips we can play on stream too. So I think Saul's trying to find something right now to prove his point.
I was just going to say that Rudy Giuliani, in his instance where he said that they were committing voter fraud when in that video where they put the voter boxes underneath the table and then they come back out and bring them back out. That was his accusation against Ruby Freeman and her daughter. And he was sued and he admitted he lied in court.
Okay,
so
when
Rudy
was
Giuliani
that?
has conceded, made public comments falsely claiming 2 Georgia election workers committed ballot fraud. during the 2020 presidential race, but is arguing that the statements were protected by the First Amendment. That assertion by Giuliani, who as part of Donald Trump's legal team tried to overturn results in battleground states, came in a filing Tuesday in a lawsuit by Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Shea Moss. Their lawsuit from December 2021 accused the former New York City mayor of defaming them by falsely stating.
Let's segue away from J6. What about the 34 felonies? Like, how is that not an example of how the system working against him?
What was he convicted of? 34 felonies.
Wasn't he convicted of 34 felonies before? Or wasn't there 34 felonies he was found in New York City that he was found guilty of and he had to pay a bunch of money? Did that not happen?
Do you know what happened in that case?
Well, I got an idea. Why don't you explain it?
Well, you're the one who brought it up.
Fawny Willis and what's his face? But why don't you explain your side of how that situation unfolded?
I think he committed tax fraud, didn't he? And fraudulently was signing documents. And they paid a porn star with campaign funds to silence her during the election. There was a whole bunch of them. I don't know. I mean, I don't even really care about that case at all. I think the more important ones are being delayed until after the election. But I don't see any reason to believe those cases didn't hold any merit.
Yeah, well, no, it was just the way the case was handled, the way the jury was picked, the way it was held in, like, just there was a whole, it seemed like a perfect storm against him at the time with certain circumstances.
Well, I mean, what would happen if he did commit those crimes? How would they usually prosecute them?
Canada RV in the chat. He is no hero. He will fix some things, but he isn't a complete fix. With Trump there is also bad with the good. Is also bad with the good, but he is America's best choice. So Canada RV, I think you are like most of my friends too. You think Trump's just the lesser evil of the two, and that, you know, in a sense of, like, you can think what, you know, when these facts are presented to you, that's the conclusion you come to. And I have a friend who it's the same thing, right? And you know, I think
why did he pay her with campaign money then? Yeah, I'm not saying he needed the money. I think he just didn't want to
coming after Stormy Daniels.
I don't care. Stormy needs Botox. Yeah, I mean, I don't even really care about those cases. I think the way more important thing is the January 6th stuff.
I was bringing it back
to that because that's the most important thing to me. If Trump did that, if Trudeau did that, if anybody else did something like this, I would say they absolutely can never be elected again. We can't ever let a leader think that this is an okay precedent to set and that you can get reelected despite breaking these norms and breaking these institutions that we've built. Geez, wake up, you dude are elementary. He loves his country, but he's dumb as a stump. LOL. Yeah, I think at least only one of those things is true in my opinion.
Let's not divert to just attacking personal character. If you want to attack him, attack the information he's saying, and, you know, with your opinion. Like for me, with this whole thing, I brought up the 34 felonies because it's a good example of how the system can.
How do you know that wasn't
the scales of
trial?
Justice can tip one way to make it more convenient? You know, I just feel like this whole 34 felonies was completely politically motivated. I think that whole thing, because there's a lot of other business owners that are doing the same kind of things that he was being accused of doing. Maybe not the payments to Stormy Daniels, but what was being considered business fraud, right? That aspect of it, which resulted in having to pay a bunch of money, wasn't just due to the payouts, right? It was about I guess he was like having assistants of his sign things for him or something, right? It was something like that. It was something like can't remember the exact situation that happened, but it was such a minor discrepancy. And one of these big business guys came up and said, "I do that all the time, and I never get charged for it." He's saying everybody does this, and he's saying the fact that he's getting charged for this is just to bring him in, right?
So
and that's kind of what they did, right?
Guy saying that
I forget his name. Right? He's like. He's from Canada. He's like Kevin. I want to say Kevin O'Leary.
Oh, Kevin O'Leary.
I forget his name.
Are we sure that what he was accused of is something that people do all the time and never get charged for?
Well, not the paying to Stormy Daniels.
Well, no, just the tax fraud in general.
He talks like a 2-year-old. He's talking about Trump does. Trump has a very plain way of communicating, but he's also he's an entertainer. Right. And I think that's why he comes off just more likable than Kamala. And Kamala Harris the other day, like some people were saying Jesus is king in her rally. And she told them that she thinks they're at the wrong rally. And I thought, like, whoa, okay, well that's
why were they only there just to say that? or were they protesting something else?
Well, what she said, the comment right after they said Jesus is king.
Well,
So it's not a good look.
I don't know. You know who else?
That's what I mean. That's
Actually,
the image
they were saying
that's the
Christ is
image
king.
that the Democrats have,
Okay.
right? Is that like
They were saying Christ
we're all
is
about
king?
inclusivity and tolerance unless you're straight, white, or Christian.
Well,
Like it's
do you know who says Christ is king a lot?
I think it's just a quote from the Bible. It's not just a thing from the Bible.
No,
That's
it's
something
an
people say.
ongoing. There's a group of people who, in particular, have been saying it quite a bit.
Okay, well, I don't know who. All I know is it just sounds like someone saying something from the Bible, but you didn't like.
No, I don't. I don't think that in itself is bad. But I think if you're heckling at a political rally, you would get kicked out. If you were heckling,
Okay, yeah, let's
how will
instead
your
of
life
just
be affected if Trump gets in? You've got no control of this outcome. I think that Canada will be affected if Trump gets in. I think Trump is.
That's why we want to talk about it. That's why we ended up talking about it, because it is important just to see what's going on in the States. Like, people make the joke that Canada is kind of like another state. In a sense of the North American politics, we have to cooperate with the States as effectively as we can. We share a big border. A lot of what happens in the States does affect us, but Trump particularly, I think, has said he wanted to tariff certain exports coming out of Canada into America. I can't remember exactly everything, but I think there was I think a lot of the industry along the border, which is where most of Canada really lives in Western Canada. Would the Trump tariffs affect Canada negatively? That's what I'm not 100% on. But I've been so focused and engrossed in Canadian politics the last few weeks, I haven't been paying so much attention to what's going on with Trump at the moment. But throughout the summer, I was watching pretty much every rally he did. I think I watched and was clipping shorts of him and taking notes. And yeah, I just came across. I just don't see it. I just don't see a dictator. I see a narcissist. I see.
Do you think he
a
cares about
comedian.
democracy?
I see an idiot. I see, Donald Trump. Like, he's just so unique in himself, right? But I don't see a dictator.
Do you see somebody who cares about democracy?
I'd say cares about the same as any other average president. I don't know. I never really thought he did any less or any more than anyone else. I didn't think he was like
he's
the
first
ultimate
president
fighter
in
and the
history
only
to
thing
not-
standing between us and tyrants. He's not a
He
dictator.
didn't attend Biden's inauguration. He's the first president in history not to do that.
Yeah, like what I'm trying to say is I just don't see a dictator. North American survival depends on Trump winning. Well, that's the thing too. Is what to me at this point with current geopolitics, the current geopolitical situation with ongoing wars and stuff. What's the difference between like what do you think he's going to do differently than Kamala Harris? Like, what do you think that the Republicans would do if they were elected? Saul, how do you think they would handle all these foreign wars that are going on right now?
I think he would pull out of Ukraine immediately and just let them get taken over by Russia. I don't know what he would do with Israel. He would probably just tell Bibi to end it quickly. So just blow everybody up and get it over with. Maybe I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what he would do. I don't think Trump actually has any strong policy positions, especially in foreign policy. I think that he just does whatever he thinks his base wants him to do, which is fine. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. But I think that he's a weak leader. Globally, like I think that people don't respect him. They laugh at him. They
What
take
about
advantage of
Biden's
him.
no gun salute inauguration?
Biden's no gun salute inauguration. Okay. Trump's also the first president in a really long time to enact anti-gun laws.
What anti-gun laws did Trump enact?
He banned bump stocks.
Bump stocks.
Yeah. Democracy is overrated with dumb dudes voting. I disagree. Is there a difference between the leader of an illiberal democracy and a dictator like a magnitude thing? Yeah. I think if you can vote and the leadership changes, that means that you're in a democracy. That's kind of why I would support Trudeau being ousted right now, because I think he's done a bad job. He deserves to have the wheels rolled and the next leader has a turn to come in. I think it's really important to show people that that's how it happens here. If you do a bad job, you get kicked out of office. And
yeah, well, Trudeau's on his way out. I definitely think, and that's
and I
what
think it's
I'm
a
going to
good
be after in today's afternoon stream. I'm going to be going over today's question period, I think, and I wanted to go touch up on some new stuff coming about Trudeau there, but I just don't see the similarities between the two at all. Like I see narcissistic qualities they both have, but I don't see
Trump has a digital currency.
Kane saying true.
He has his own
Is that to Saul?
crypto coin. The benevolent dictator. Yeah, well, that's what everybody wants, right? They want their benevolent dictator to take care of them. That's the thing is, I don't think that a lot of the Trump supporters actually really care about democracy clearly. Like, because like this guy doesn't care about it. Why are you supporting him if you care about it? He went along with red flag laws. Trump is definitely worse than Trudeau. He incited an insurrection and tried to use the military to
I
overthrow
don't
the
think
American
Trump
government.
is the anti-establishment candidate at all. I thought RFK Jr. was doing pretty good, and I thought he might end up being a serious contender. And then all these things came out about him, and he did have a pretty strong grip on the polls for an independent. Then he ended up losing it. And then we were watching something of him before, and he was saying like, "Oh, my skeletons in the closet could vote me king of the world." And I was just like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why do you think
stuff, right? I'm just gonna play.
I
this in
think
the
I
background.
don't know. Like, we're not American citizens, so I don't know if we can for sure. But
It'll probably be okay, right? I
uh,
was just trying to get something going on in the background because we're kind of just sitting here reading the chat. Rudy Trudy, what's a
that's
legacy?
what this
he's
is, right?
left?
We're hoping for. I'm glad we have a lot of people engaged with us in the chat right now. It's giving us a lot to talk
Trudeau
about here.
isn't going to have a legacy. His legacy is going to be getting kicked out of his party and losing the election.
Well, the Liberal Party might end up having
January
to like
6th wasn't
reform,
an
essentially,
sorry.
right? Like the whole Liberal Party might end up falling apart and having to reform.
American Republicans are the most heavily armed civilian population on the planet, most corrupt ever. No way did Rump agree to remove firearms. He did. He put forward the bump stock ban. He's the
And like
first
how
American president in a really long time to do it. I don't even know how long. It was a reaction to a shooting because that's how Trump responds to everything. Everything he does is just a reaction. We need to keep physical cash. Yeah, I don't think physical cash will ever die.
so apparently even to a lot of
pro-Christian can't. Okay, no, I'm going to push back on that too. Trump, if he's a Christian, he's the worst Christian. And he like what? Biden is a better Christian than Trump, clearly.
well that we know of. You know, I think Trump just doesn't.
Is
Trump
openly
scandals
cheating
out in
on
the
his
open.
wives. He's
like
openly
who
cheated on
knows?
3 of his wives.
Okay, but I'm not saying
He
Trump's
couldn't
a good
name his
Christian here.
favorite Bible verse. They asked him.
Yeah.
He couldn't even say John 3:16 or
That's
something.
what I was just about to say. 2 cents about the bump stock ban. Apparently, there was actually a lot of gun advocates even calling for that as well because they were saying there's no reason for a citizen to need a bump stock.
It's the strongest anti-gun legislation I think that's happened in the States in decades.
Like
Unless
me
there's something
personally,
else
I don't
that
know
about.
enough about firearms to know how big of a deal the bump stock ban really is. I just think, from what I understand, it was a response to a school shooting. Like, but is that really taking away guns? Because that's taking away a modification to guns, right? It's taking away a firearms modification, not a firearm.
It's gun legislation.
Yeah, so it's the argument is that banning firearm accessories or modifications is an infringement on Second Amendment rights.
All right, all
Okay,
I'm saying
so
is, would you guys have been okay with it if Joe Biden tried to ban something like that?
it wasn't big at all, and it was overturned by the
That's
court.
true.
So wait,
That's
it didn't
true.
even get passed?
No, it didn't. No, it got overturned.
Yeah. Canada RV, he did, and then he said, "Don't take it." What's no, it wasn't the Democrats were saying, "Don't take the Trump shot," and then there was like a clip of somebody saying that, and it was really
that's
funny.
what I was hoping people were going to bring that up today because I was going to say the one thing I think that Trump did good was Operation Warp Speed. I don't know if you've read it.
Of course you do.
Did you know that Pfizer didn't actually even take the government funding because they thought it would compromise their
Where is that? Where's
I was
proof
reading
of
it.
that? Send me that. I would
Operation
love
Warp
to
Speed.
read that if that's true.
Operation
That to me would be
Warp
pretty
Speed.
big. Would be pretty. You think they would have come out a little bit sooner if that's true? He took away the meta for firearms. The big thing about the bump stock was Trump calling out the Republicans publicly and telling them not to just abide by what the NRA says.
Yeah, they didn't join Operation Warp Speed. Operation Warp Speed had 7 vaccines all being developed at the same time and then being tested simultaneously. They were doing like first to third, what's the word for it? Class 1 to 3 tests or whatever the hell it's called. All simultaneously. Like that was the whole goal, was to just pour a whole bunch of money into it and do something that usually would be done over separately.
Fauci juice? What?
The Fauci juice. Yeah, well, I mean, thank this guy. He's the one who made it, right?
Oh, jeez. Mr. Fauci. I remember that too. That was a good, that was good. I forgot about all that too, eh? Like he had to testify. What about like, and that's what's so crazy is like just the level of corruption that we know of that's gone on. I don't understand why it would be that crazy that there'd be enough corruption to sway the narrative one way, right? And I just think that
I think it's the amount of people that have testified against Trump, the amount of evidence, the amount of footage, it's undeniable. We have the literal PDF like scans of the fraudulently filled out elector slates they made. And
yeah, well, it's
the plan
PDFs.
written
Like
by
how
Eastman.
hard is that?
These
And a
people aren't
plan
denying
written
it. They're
by
in
who,
court. They're
sorry?
not saying it's fake. They're saying they were allowed to do it.
No, I think when we went into this before, I said you would have to get, I think it was like a total of 16 people. You'd have to have them under your thumb in some way. So you'd have to have them blackmailed in some way or convince them to lie for that to have been tampered with. And I think that's what we came to last time we talked about at that time.
For why 16 people?
Because that's what how many people testified against him, saying that he was doing what you're saying and that it was their plan. And what the fake electors happening was they knew it wasn't true, but they pushed it through anyways. That's what we got through last time we went through this, like a while ago. I think we did one of our like first
I was
episodes.
trying to look at how many. They did 1,000 interviews over the course of a year.
Yeah, but when it came to people testifying in court against him, and it came to those hearings that happened shortly after that, that was the one that you pointed me to. You're the one who showed me those hearings.
15, 16,
And I
17,
said,
18,
there's a
19,
total of
20.
16 people here
There's more than that.
said this. So you would have to get them, they would all have to be co-opted or coerced in some way
The
for
key
this
witnesses, there's like over
to be
20
rigged
of them.
against him.
And they're all people that worked super closely with him as well.
But that's what I'm saying is that, like, I don't think it's impossible. I think, yeah, okay, you can argue it's unlikely, but I don't think it's like out of the realms of possibility. That's all. And you know, this whole thing is we're just theorizing here as well as we're debating facts.
Just to clear the air, Pfizer was purchased by the American government eventually, but they weren't a part of Operation Warp Speed. They weren't one of the seven vaccines that were developed simultaneously.
Yeah,
Remember
I don't
the
want to
50
talk too much
CIA agents
about
that came
those. I
on?
don't want to be getting banners on the video.
Yeah. And so the
Because of
laptop
that,
was
because
misinformation.
you still can't talk about it, right? That's how crazy this stuff is. And I think that if we have the Democrats in power longer, we're going to get more of that style of censorship. That's why I think when it comes to freedom of speech,
Can I just
definitely
address
think-
somebody in the chat?
yeah,
Sorry, I was just going to say, someone brought up the thing in Florida. I'm assuming you're talking about 2004, where Al Gore asked to have the ballots recounted because it was really close, and the courts denied his request, and he conceded the election. So it was nothing like this. Because Trump pushed through every single person telling him that it wasn't what was happening. He demanded.
but then that's what I mean. You make him seem like such a bully, right? The
He
way
was
you
a
talk
bully,
about
haven't
him.
you? The
You just have
Raffensperger
this
call?
like preconceived notion. I feel like about him.
No,
right? Like,
it's based on what I've seen him do and heard him
You've
say.
seen him. You saw yourself all this stuff he did. You saw.
Well,
yourself.
I heard the Raffensperger called.
When is the last time a Democrat lost gracefully? 2000.
What do you mean?
Trudeau
lost
owns
gracefully?
shares in Moderna. Was that true, Cryptomiri? Does he actually own shares in Moderna? I thought he bought them, or it was something
Someone
else.
was
Like, I
saying
know
that before. I couldn't find it.
I know
So,
that
Mr.
it
President,
was
everybody is on
Doug
the line,
Ford
and just
invested
so
a bunch
this
of
is
money
Mark
in
Meadows, the
floor
Chief of
stickers
Staff,
before implementing the regulation that stores had to put arrows in the ground, and he invested a bunch of money in a floor sticker company. That was kind of greasy.
I think he already owned it, didn't he?
No, I don't think he. I think he invested a bunch of money, and I don't think he already owned it.
I thought he did.
I think
That's what
he
I read,
owned.
but maybe
He
I'm
owned
wrong.
the company when the regulation, or he had a stake in the company when the regulation came into effect. That was the speculation, I think, on that one. Even though it was like probably such a, no one really cared about the floor sticker money industry, but it was just, it's just an example of how this stuff does happen all the time without you even realizing it, right? And most people probably don't even know about that. But Lawfare, Banana Republic Court. Well, that's the thing is, like, to me, I don't think it's impossible. Like, you can argue it's unlikely, like I said, but I don't think it's impossible. This could have been, like, it could have been rigged against them at all. Hillary, who created the birther rumor, claimed Russia helped Trump 2000, was referenced to Bush for a score. Name one president or prime minister that fixed our world in the last 200 years. You know what, Canada RV? I have a friend who's like you too. He's just like, it's all a distraction. I'm just like, I just get in a really depressed, the thing is like, I don't feel that defeated yet, really. I feel like,
Claims Russia
like
helped
talked
Trump,
about,
but she didn't deny the election results. She conceded the election, and she said that I hope he does a good job.
oh, Hillary Clinton.
compromise and
I just,
settlement,
to me, I just feel like
proceeding.
it's it's an over dramatic thing to call him a dictator. But you have, Hillary Clinton getting people arrested for memes, calling it election interference. Like, I don't know, did you not hear about that whole thing? That guy's facing trial for up to 6 months in prison or something.
Yeah, he was spreading election misinformation, right?
It was a meme that he shared.
Yeah, it's
he wasn't
illegal.
even the one who made the meme.
It's super
though.
illegal.
He didn't even make the meme. The originator of the meme didn't even get caught. He was the one who reposted it, and then it went viral or something.
Okay, well, I mean, if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law, right?
But how is it breaking the law? It was clearly a joke, right?
Well, no.
But
What was the
but this
meme?
is what I'm saying. It's like, if you can be incriminated, if you can be jailed for a meme by the Democrats, how is that not more authoritative than?
Well, what if I
than
kill someone and say
anything
it's just a
Trump's
meme?
done?
It's just
Sorry?
a meme. If you say it's just a meme to kill someone, or it's just a meme to defame somebody. let's
Okay,
say
was that what the
you
meme
make
was?
a
It was calling a
meme-
fake number that was clearly a fake number.
Make a meme
It's
that
just-
says
And
somebody's.
the thing was, the phone records showed only 2 people called it.
I don't think it matters. I think if you're spreading fake election misinformation, you should get in trouble for it.
I just think that's, I just don't think that's election misinformation. It's a
Trump
joke.
stated he will be a dictator on day one. That's also true. He did say that.
Oh,
He
my
also
goodness.
saluted the North Korean military, which is the first time that's ever happened as well.
Are you sure we can play that on stream?
I mean, I don't understand how they could possibly own this, so I'm not 100% sure.
Well, with
But I'm
American
pretty
stuff,
sure.
dude, they own
I
everything.
played
Like
this on stream before, I think.
like Disney owns an interview of Biden and George Stephanopoulos. So
I'll just play it off a different website then.
well, playing on YouTube is better than playing it off site, I think, if you're going to play it, because then you can link their video and say it's their video.
Well, I was just going to play a little bit of it. I can play it like in the background. We don't have to have it on the screen. Is that better?
And actually
It's just
go
audio.
through the registered voter IDs
Yeah,
and
just
the registration.
it should be
and
fine.
If you
Just
can
the audio,
convince
maybe.
us that 24,149 is inaccurate, then fine. But
Yeah, that's what I mean.
we
It's
tend
like,
to
since when
believe
can
that
people
that
not
is-
think for themselves?
Yeah, it is the responsibility of the individual to do their own research. Yeah, exactly. Which is what happened with me. Like, I know everybody's going to think that I've just always been a full-time Trump hater. That's not the case. I've always thought, initially when January 6th happened, I thought it was being overblown. I thought it was ridiculous that they were making such a big deal about it. And then I started to look into everything, and it was like, holy crap, like this guy had a whole scheme for how he was going to take over the government. 60 Minutes edited their Kamala interview to make her look better. Yeah, this is another example I was going to bring up when we were talking about the freedom of speech thing, because Trump stated that they should lose their media license over that interview. It's not fake. The effing election was stolen, plain sight. Please post the evidence, because all of the Republican judges that reviewed the cases
Yeah, even Trump
disagree.
Like, the thing is, what really changed my opinion on Trump was the Lex Friedman interview he did. That was the nail in the coffin for my opinion on him. But at the end of the day, I still kind of think he's the lesser evil because to me, it kind of showed that he's an idiot. And it's like, this guy's not going to be able to take over America. Like, he's not going to be able to do it. Like, yeah, he can try, but it's not going to work. Like, even if he tries, I just don't think it's going to happen. I just think that the way that the Democrats are going is that I feel like if they're going to slide us into a dictatorship, they'll do so by declaring some kind of state of emergency.
Also, Bumpy,
so I feel like as all these tensions amp up and we get closer to like World War III, that to me scares me because the biggest implications are what it's going to do is the political angle of it all. How are these politicians going to swing World War III, right? How are they going to swing us being at war? We already saw how they handled other things that happened in 2020 and 2020, and, from 2020 to 2024 or 2020 to now. And it's just like, how would you feel about them handling this stuff in a war too? Like it's terrifying. Like, CTV. Yeah. 2 cents. We actually talked about that before too. The CTV forging a video, and then they ended up actually apologizing for it, I believe.
George Lykolopoulos, I don't know if you saw, I don't know how long you've been here for, but you can literally Google the Eastman memos. That's Trump's lawyer he hired. Like there's no, Trump himself isn't even arguing against this.
Yeah, SNL
what I was going to
was a
say
little
too
bad
is
for a while
I
there.
watched that Fox News interview that Bumpy, I think, was the one who told me to watch it. And he said that they asked him hard questions. And to be fair, they did, but he didn't answer any of them. The only firm answer I heard him give was to the question, do you think Kamala is responsible for the border crisis? That was the only one. He said yes. That was the only one I heard a straightforward answer to. Every other question,
but
every
I felt
hard
like
question
then
was,
when we're watching the BC leaders debate, you're like, I said the same thing about EB, and you're like saying I was wrong. But it's like, to me, they just attacked personal character the whole time. They didn't stand on anything of their own, right? And I think that's where even with that presidential debate, I think Trump did worse than Kamala, but I don't think that means he'd be a worse president. I think at this point, Kamala would probably end up.
No, I was only bringing it up because Bumpy Johnson mentioned the 60 Minutes thing, and that was brought up in the Fox News interview that I think he also told me to watch. Even Trump's own lawyer, Cohen, spoke out against him. That speaks a lot about his character. It's more than just his lawyer. It's his ex-vice president. It's multiple former attorney generals. It's his ex-chief of staff. It's military commanders that were working underneath him. There's so many people that have worked with Trump that have come out and said that he was a crazy person and that they don't support him being president again. And, like people like to laugh at the fact that Dick Cheney has endorsed Kamala Harris, but it's like, we're always trying to say that Democrats have moved and that Republicans have stayed the same. And that's why the center is so far right. But that's clearly not the case because I don't think Dick Cheney's politics have changed. I think Donald Trump is a far cry from what the Republican Party used to be. And you can like what that new thing they are is, but it's not republicanism. It's not an adherence to tradition or the Constitution. Being loyal to our military allies. Because that's the other reason I'd be really concerned if we had a global conflict under Trump, because he's willing to throw out NATO. Who's he even going to side with? Compare Trump getting hard questions impressed to Kamala with Brett Baier. No, yeah, I think Trump crumbled. I think Kamala did way better under pressure. She didn't do amazing. I wasn't super happy with the results from her interviews, but Trump doesn't even try to answer a lot of the questions.
Well, what do you mean?
Sorry?
Like, I don't know. I tell you got to watch the Tucker interview. I thought it was a good interview, and it wasn't that softball. Like there was some softball in the beginning, but he did ask a lot of hard questions about his family, questions about relationship with his family. Like to me, he put him on the spot a lot. Like I think you should really watch that because I think you still haven't seen the Tucker Carlson interview when Tucker first went independent, and then there is the. I'll
watch it. I think I did see pieces of it when it came out.
It was a speech he gave. I forget what speech it was where I watched. I thought it was pretty good. Trump. But I've watched every Trump rally this year, like throughout the summer and early spring, and yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot there.
Bumpy, did you watch that Fox News interview? He constantly brought up Kamala and Biden after every question almost. And at the end, the interviewer asks him, why do you think that Kamala is a Marxist? And he says, well, her dad was a Marxist. That was his answer. Dude, you are tone deaf. Haha, crazy person. Dude, you can't read a room. Kamala lashed out into attacking Trump. I don't know who said crazy person.
Oh, George here.
No, I mean, like, Did someone else call him a crazy person, or is he calling me a crazy person? He's going to side
I don't know.
with the
We
Russians, rightly so.
don't need to divulge the
Oh.
technical's character here. Let's just talk about the matter at hand here. Right? We're trying to get to some kind of we're trying to get as much information out there as possible, right?
You think the Russians are pro-American? You think the Russians don't hate America? They don't want to see the downfall of America? You think that isn't like the main thing that they're focused on? Kamala didn't answer a single
I
question.
think
She
most of the
attacked
world
Trump
is
on his
focused on that,
cognitive state,
actually.
and then
I
refused.
think most of the world is focused on not wanting America to be the superpower, right? And that's like China, Iran,
Yeah.
even India, probably. Like all these countries saw like the whole like the Saudis. Like, do you think any of them want America to be number one? No, they don't. They want to be number one, right? And so they're going to do whatever is going to help them get to be number one in their books, right? But like I said, we don't need to divulge to attacking personal characters. Saul needs to take a chill pill too. And we just, let's move forward so we can keep getting some information out. Hey, Rob, welcome back, buddy.
Do you think Ukraine loves America? I think they definitely love America more than Russia does. They love America. It's why Putin endorsed
Don't patronize
Kamala.
us. Don't patronize us, Canada RV.
That's clearly a joke. Everybody's laughing in the background when he says it. Putin publicly endorsed Kamala, who helped America more during the war on terror, Ukraine and Russia. So do you think that Putin's judgment is good? Because you just said Trump would side with Putin. So do you think that Putin was endorsing Kamala because he doesn't want a president that'll be favorable to him, or what? What's her pro-woke agenda is Marxist? No way. Well, I mean, Trump didn't say that. He said that her dad was Marxist, and that's why she's a Marxist. And also being, I don't know, Marxism is a whole different thing. There's no Marxism in mainstream American.
I just think she's like, if you want like Canadian liberal like policies, then vote Kamala. Like, that's how I see it. It's like, if you want,
why would he
a
endorse
Trudeau to come
Kamala
in,
then, if that's the case? Or was he joking?
Because it's just,
like
I think a lot of people, I think maybe Trump's been kind of kicked out of the establishment, and yeah, maybe he is a little crazy. But that's why he's not in the establishment as much anymore. And I think a lot of them just don't want him in there because maybe it's just more of their best interest to have Kamala in there. They'll make more money with Kamala in there, right?
Yeah, a Russian official trolling Americans.
Yeah,
during
like
election
obviously
is shocking.
Russia is going to be messing with America. Like I
like
fully
Benny
heartedly
Thompson's
agree with that as well.
ability.
Like, I don't think and it was more of a
Yeah,
it was
of
a
course he
half
wasn't
joke.
serious.
I feel like Putin's endorsement. Yeah, no, Putin's
Of course it
that
was
was
a
so
joke.
funny. That
Yeah.
was so funny. I watched that. He's laughing.
I know,
was
that's what I said.
laughing.
Yeah.
It's just like, why would he support? Like, it's way more favorable. Like, he had a way better relationship with Trump. Don't get me wrong.
Of course, yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think that makes Trump a dictator. Like, it just like
Well,
to
he
me,
sure likes to
I think
cozy
the
up to
only
dictators, though,
ending
right?
the war wouldn't be a problem, but it depends on what he does, right? If he just gives everything to Putin, then I don't think that's right either. But at the same time, it's like, because there's a lot of people in America today who are from families who were part of the fall of the Soviet Union and stuff, and they remember what Russia was like, right? And they remember what happened back then and stuff that people are worried about that could happen again, right?
And Bumpy, that thing that happened in 2014, I'm pretty sure that the military, like the government, was shooting protesters. So it wasn't like it was like a democratically
it
elected
is
government
exactly
that
Bumpy,
everybody loved.
and that's why we're doing this
Talking
debate
to
right now.
your enemies is called diplomacy. I agree.
But that's what we're trying to do, right? Even if you don't agree, we got to talk, right?
Trump commands a
And
room.
that's the point of this.
He was laughed at the United Nations. Trump does not command a room. He makes a room
I
laugh.
just
for
read
sure.
that out. Okay,
He's
George,
funny.
just again with it is
Aged.
kind of funny, but just cool it on the personal digs there.
Aged Homela is a placeholder. Well, I can see we're focused on policy here. He cozied up to Kim Jong-un and Putin, but was
Arthur
hard
seeing if his
on
word censored.
Germans for their pipeline. Dictator.
Trump is the disruptor of the
disruptor
Leviathan.
of-
Oh, that isn't it? Revelations, the Leviathan, or like, doesn't that mean like?
Our enemies are licking their lips, waiting to overpower Kamala. That's a joke. They're licking their lips at Trump, dude. Like, I don't know what do they think? What do you think Trump's going to do to stand up to these people? He's willing to work with them.
Yeah, bumpy. And I
doesn't
think
have
that's the same thing with, I think that's one similarity apparently that Trudeau has, right? Is the ability to control a room. And I think that's where in the liberal, there are these tall leaders, right? And like, even if, like, to me, with Trump, I just, like I said, I just don't see him being a dictator.
If you can find a video of Kamala getting laughed at in a serious meeting, please link it or tell us where to look and we'll find it. The UN is divided. It's collapsing coalition. That's kind of true.
What? Kane?
Hey, stop that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. 2 cents. I can't either officially because I'm not a biologist. Just see.
Yeah. What did Russia take under Trump? I thought that was the Ketanji Brown Jackson that gave that answer.
It was. No, but
Under
she did
Obama,
say at a
it
point
was
she
Trump.
did dodge
yeah,
the
no,
question.
I agree. Obama did shit on Ukraine. He was bad.
Yeah, the UN's a private company.
I
So is
blame
the
Obama and
WHO,
Trump
right? People know
for the
that,
Ukraine
right?
Stuff.
Like they're companies, technically. Like people
You cannot even define
put
what a
money in
woman
them.
is.
Well, they're non-profits, but
I noticed a lot of people
Freedom
forgot how to
price.
define a woman after the boxer stuff at the Olympics. All of a sudden, it was really complicated.
it's complicated when it's trending. When Matt Walsh puts out a documentary, or that happens, or
Oh, I was going to
Some-
invest in McDonald's recently. That's a good idea. Yeah, I thought the McDonald's thing is funny. Like, I'm not like, that's the thing is like, I think Trump is funny. I do. I just don't think he's a good leader.
yeah, you can. I just don't think he's a dictator. Is my point, and that's
Well,
my
what
argument.
would convince
Like,
you? What would make you feel like he was? What would he have to do?
he would have to, like I said, he would have had to have been, he would have had to already done a lot more. Like he would have had to have been way more forceful in what he was trying to get done. I think, in his plan, I just don't see it really. Like I see someone who might have been blinded by his own ideology and idea, but I don't see somebody who deliberately misled the nation to want to take it over. It just seems a little bit ridiculous.
You don't think he knew he lost?
At this point, at the time it happened, I don't think he did. I think he realized it after and then just never admitted it until Lex Friedman, like 3 years later.
We
It
don't
was
do
just
a
like
chromosome
casually
test
going to
on
drop
everything.
it. We lost by a whisker.
Like, I
just
don't want to get super
casually,
sidetracked on that.
First time admitting it. That was his first time admitting it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's so crazy. That really blew it out of the water for me. And I was like, okay, this guy's just a fucking
I think the
moron.
most
Like,
important
that was
freedom
my whole thing.
is our democratic
Sorry
system.
for attacking Trump's character there, but that's what I got when he said lost by a whisker in the Lex Friedman interview. I was just like, well, you just like people went to jail for you, and you just did that. So
Yeah.
to me, it's like to say that I think maybe he did really think at the time, and then over time, it's somewhere along the line he figured it out and just didn't acknowledge it.
No, I think he knew right from the start. I think he was just
I
pushing
just-
to
I don't
get
know.
people who would be willing to go along with it anyways. What
If
do
he
you
was
think?
fighting
What do you
against
think would have been
freedoms for people-
different if that was true?
What do you mean?
Like, if he really was trying to fraudulently overthrow the election, what would you think you would see that you haven't seen?
I
It's a
think
hard
we just
question.
would have had. I don't think his lawyer would have won that court case. First off, I think
Which
that
one?
wouldn't have gone anywhere. The one with
'Cause
the
that wasn't
argument for
about-
immunity.
Whether or not it was okay for him to do that, it was about whether or not he qualifies for immunity for official duties and how far those official duties go. I keep trying to change the color of the text. I still can't really see it that well.
This
but-
may be pedantic, but he can't be a dictator because he's not in power currently, not to disrupt your Leviathan.
Oh, yeah.
The point is, if you're voting for the leader of the most powerful country on the planet, they should know what a woman.
He was being sarcastic. Yeah, well,
Taking it
Trump
back
was
to that
bringing
2
up
cents.
that boxer, so he doesn't know what a woman is either, I guess, right? Because
Character
is
flaws
that
doesn't
boxer a
make a bad
woman or no?
leader. Yeah, wasn't there a lot of stuff about like Abe Lincoln at the time when he was president? Like he was kind of hated by a lot of people. And then
Of course,
he
yeah,
came
there was
into
a civil
power,
war.
and then looking back, he's like a hero, right? And that's I think what we see a lot in history because of the way that the
Are you
victors
comparing
rewrite
Trump
it,
to
right?
Abe Lincoln right now?
No. I'm just saying that there might be a lot of people within history who have done things that are character flaws similar to Trump that we just don't even know about.
Well, what was
But
a
looking back in
character flaw
history, there was all
of
we see is
Abraham
the
Lincoln?
positive impact on the country.
What
And
was
the bias is kind of fallen off, right?
What do you
Um,
think that Abraham's character flaw was?
Kamala doesn't have character flaws. She's like
Kamala.
What the heck, Arthur?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yeah. I know it's funny because that was such a big deal back then, right? Now we have Mr. Grab him by the...
I forget about the Bill. Yeah, the whole Bill Clinton, right?
Have you guys heard that whole Access Hollywood tape? Like the whole thing? It's so crazy. I can't believe that he still got elected after that.
Oh,
Fear
that's so
mongering,
funny.
I believe, has come back to bite them. How will the people... Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, some of the chats aren't going up on the chat box; they're just coming up on the screen. So we are trying to acknowledge it all, but yeah, it's
What do you think is an
some
unreal?
skip right there.
I guess in my opinion, I just feel like I see everything that would like. I don't know what else you could ask for evidence that he did it. That he knew.
Well,
that he,
I just feel like if you have complete faith in all institutions, then yeah, you're right. Couldn't ask for any more.
Let's
It's
say
almost a
you
perfect
don't have
scenario.
faith in the institutions. Do you think you would just never know and you can't know?
Well, no, I just think over time more is going to come out and we're going to get the full answer. And I think right now we've got a good chunk of it. Him going Lex Friedman saying what he did, I think gave us more of an answer on things as well. But I definitely don't think we have the whole picture here yet. I think we're just missing a few pieces and a few pieces to further incriminate him. Well, just in terms of like him actually becoming a dictator, like I just don't see it.
Well, I'm
And
not
the thing
voting
is
for Cardi B to be
I'm
president.
I'm missing trust in these institutions. That's what I'm mainly missing.
Oh,
and
okay.
so all these,
I guess
you're the
you're
same
ultimately
way
you're trusting
that you're discrediting things I'm bringing up and discrediting things that people have brought up. It's the same way I guess I'm discrediting your points on it because of my lack of faith in these institutions.
Okay, just for my own memory, maybe I'm just not remembering. What was something that you guys brought up that I discredited?
Something Isaiah brought up.
It's illegal for
forced you to read
non-documented
it.
migrants to vote in American elections. There's no way they vote. Yeah, that's true.
But
The Access Hollywood, the Access Hollywood tape. I just think it's crazy. I just think he's clearly talking about like forcing himself on women. Even though some girl's married, he's talking about with a married woman, and he gets out of the thing and he makes some comment saying Melania says this is okay.
what?
Yeah. He created a peace accord in the Middle East, didn't start any new wars. The economy was recovering and it was encouraging helping the minority communities, was rebuilding the military. I'll take no new wars over tolerating a distasteful character. He didn't end anything either, really.
And that's where most people are
No
standing.
new
Bumpy.
wars doesn't mean anything when there's 4 ongoing wars already. Like we were fighting
but
in
it's his
Syria,
response.
fighting
He
in
says
Yemen, fighting in Afghanistan.
He's running
He
on
attacked
ending the
Soleimani.
wars, right?
Just because the Iraqis didn't retaliate to the assassination on Soleimani doesn't mean he wasn't instigating something there, right?
I don't know. I just don't. That whole thing, like I said, it's almost like
A portion of the wall is
we're just coming at these people's characters. It's like the whole thing that happened with Russell Brand, right? It's like
I remember when
he's
Trump was
reporting
actually,
on things.
I don't know if you remember this, Justice, but when Trump was campaigning, saying he was going to build a portion of the wall, and all the crowd was chanting, "Build a portion of the wall." Not when every other president for decades always started a war. The American Leviathan.
Okay, well,
you know
I
what?
was
Not
saying
starting a
something.
war
You
is
like cut
I don't
me
think
off
you get any points
and
for
then
that.
gave me half a point and got distracted with something else.
Sorry, what were you saying? Continue then.
Jeez, dude, are you even listening to me? I was just saying the same. We can't just discredit their character and discredit all their information along with it. Like that's the thing. Like look at what happened to Russell Brand, right? And even if those accusations were true, does that make everything he said up to this point a lie?
No.
That's what I mean, right? It's like I just think that there's this thing in our society of like trying to label people good or bad, and then as soon as we label them bad, they're just in the blacklist. We don't even hear them out anymore, right? And I think that's kind of the issue, right? Is that I think we're seeing that on all sides, right? And I'm not saying it's just from your side. I'm not saying it's just from my side, but that no one's really talking, right? Everyone's just like the other side is the worst thing that could happen to society, and if you don't vote that side, then you're like the enemy, right? And like I have, even to this day, it surprised me, but I feel like even just doing this show is going to end up costing me friends and personal relationships eventually once it gets more of a spotlight on it. Just because people, especially in Canada these days, they are so uncomfortable having their views challenged. And I'm thankful that Saul came on here and Arthur. Okay, right. Yeah, you could. I think he's an independent journalist, or was for a while. He's slipping a little bit lately. Not gonna lie. Lately, his show has vastly deteriorated in quality. However, the point, not to crap all over Russell Brand there, but what I'm trying to say is that despite all this, like, we can't just dismiss Trump just because of the Hollywood Access tapes. We can't dismiss all his how he acts as a president. We can judge his character and how he is as a husband or as a, in that department. But I just think it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's unfair to write him off completely just because of that. I definitely think you can question whether or not he's lying on everything else because of it. But I think he's already, as time's telling, like the Lost by the Whisker comment came out. So if he is lying, it's going to come out eventually. It's all going to come out. Okay. So it's like, to me, I just don't see this as him becoming a dictator. That's my final thought on it. I think Saul's out of time here, though, guys. But
I'm okay for a couple minutes.
You are okay.
So I just wanted to address the points he made. So he said somebody being accused of something should not be discrediting to them, which I agree with it. That you said nobody wants to listen to opposing views, and they make everybody on the other side out to be evil, so they don't have to listen to them. I do have a question on this part, but before we get to that, you also said that we can't dismiss Trump just because of the Hollywood Access tapes. I would argue that is not why I'm dismissing him at all. That has nothing to do with that.
No, I understand. I said
that's just because somebody brought up Bill Clinton, and I was drawing up something that I see as very similar, if not maybe even worse. I don't know. And then ultimately that you don't see him as a dictator. But I just wanted to ask on that point, when you say that nobody wants to listen to opposing views and they make everybody out on the other side to be evil, do I say that like Pierre Poilievre is evil?
No, not inherently, but you said things that would paint him to be not nice.
Yeah, but I would never say you shouldn't listen to him or that people who support him are evil. I don't believe that. I'm actually okay with him getting elected. I don't have a strong bias against conservatism. I have a strong distaste for Trump and the brand of politics that he pushes.
That wasn't apparent, but
I know. Well, I'm just saying that I'm trying to specify that it's more about that than it is about him being a conservative.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not trying to put you in a leftist box here. I don't really look at you as a leftist, quote unquote. Yeah, I think definitely you're more like center left. You're like in the Destiny category. I feel like where you're just
I guess. Well, like a liberal, like a regular liberal.
Yeah, well, yeah, regular by your definition for sure, but it's still comes across as like
regular. Like when I say regular, I mean, when I say regular, I was just saying, I mean, like, I would say I'm probably more in line with like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton than even Obama. Like, I think Obama might be a little bit to the left of me, maybe.
I just think Hillary Clinton is like
Trump is a proven entity, and attacking him at the hardest are attacking our democracy. Sorry. It's like lying in New York City during 9/11.
Kane, DGGW.
Russell Brand is a far right conspiracy theorist. We can respect each other and still disagree.
No, for sure. 2 cents. I think so as well. And I think sometimes I fall victim to that too. We all do. We're all human. We're always going to like fall victim of our own biases. But that's why like it's good to have this conversation. Rob. That's what my dad says, Rob. But I don't really I don't fully agree that he is far left. I'd say you want to call him left leaning. Yeah, you left leaning, sure. But I would not call you far left. And we've had other conversations. I don't think we can talk about on YouTube, but conversations about other areas where he agrees with me that most conservatives would more likely agree with. But that's the thing. It's like I have other family members too that are like that, right? It's like it's just like, yeah, like Poilievre shouldn't be prime minister, but a man can't box women. You know what I mean? Like they're on that weird in between page, and that does exist. People need to realize that, right? It's not like you're one side all in or the other. And I personally am seeing that more than ever, that most people are in between this, what we've boxed into right and left as a society. And I think that very few people who get labeled as far right are actually far right. Like even Russell Brand isn't far right. Like you preaching about sharing and God and reading Bible verses.
I'm like a half step from pink-haired Antifa brick thrower, apparently. Look, I'm more of a Kyle Rittenhouse fan than I am a BLM fan. So, man, I think you're left with a lot of hope that you want to be shown. What does that word say? It's
you want to be shown it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no. I don't believe anything that I can't see explicit proof for. I don't believe in being
Saul is your
suspicious and
textbook
suspecting
definition
stuff.
of a skeptic, and that is fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider myself a full-on skeptic, because I feel like a full-on skeptic is like you're essentially just a point Dexter, right? And then to me, that just sets you up for being taken advantage of.
Also, my 2 cents, you should look at who developed that withdrawal plan from Afghanistan, who negotiated for it. Because the Taliban was there, Donald Trump was there, the Afghanistan government wasn't there. I have about 5 more minutes. If you guys have any more questions for me, if you've got any other points you want to bring up.
Honestly, I feel like
does anybody think that
I wish I had
view
more to say on this. Like for me, like looking back at my note, like I wish I had prepared a bit more than I did. But at the same time, like it's becoming harder and harder to defend Trump's character. But it's not hard for me to say that he's not a dictator. Like to me, if he gets elected, I don't think it's the end of democracy in America. I don't think it's the worst thing for the world. I think it's more of just whatever. Like it's just things are going to go on like they always do. I think everyone's really over dramatizing this whole election. And I think there's more, the next election in Canada is going to affect us more than the next election in the States is going to affect them, I think. And I think, I don't see Trump is probably not going to deliver on a lot of the promises he makes like he did last time. Like he never drained the swamp. I'll give you that. He never drained the swamp. He said there was too much swamp to drain. That's why he said he couldn't do it. But I guess
Rob asked me, what would it take for me to turn right? I don't think I'd ever turn right. But if I had a right-wing politician who was running, who I aligned with and values more, I would vote for them every time. Trump seems like a wannabe dictator.
Someone agrees with Saul in here. Thank you.
Yeah, he's clearly a wannabe dictator.
Thank you.
He said
Eric
he would be a dictator, and we know Trump means
standing up for what you believe in. Even though I don't agree with you, and I think
the USA election will have a huge impact on Canada. Saul. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I just think what part of my argument is unsubstantiated in your opinion? Like, what part of it do you think I don't have enough proof to show?
I don't think I just think it comes down to, are you going to take what these institutions have presented to you? Are you going to put your faith in these institutions? And if you are, and don't think they are corrupted or have been co-opted in any way, with the fake elector scandal itself. But however, like I said, him saying stuff like lost by a whisker affects everything up to this point. But I just think he's an idiot. I don't think he's a dictator. Like that's what I'm trying to say, right? I don't love the guy either. But if I was an American citizen, I really don't like the Democrats.
Have you not had a boss who was really stupid and also extremely bossy?
Like, yeah. Like quite a few.
Trump could be like that, right?
I don't think so. I think it would come out a lot more. I think he'd have to be like a mastermind at public appearances.
I oppose all dictatorial politicians. My line is specifically, probably mainly around the democratic transfer of power. I think if Trudeau was to stand in the way
Joe Rogan, but that's about right as he'll go
coming in, then I would absolutely be extremely anti-Trudeau. I would be campaigning for Poilievre if Trudeau was doing the stuff that Trump does.
I just think that it's.
Do you watch any right-leaning info? Not MSM. Kind of. I used to watch Ben Shapiro a bit. I'm not a fan. I just would like listen to it to get like whatever people are talking about right now. I follow a lot of right-wing people on
Ben
Twitter.
Shapiro just comes off as whiny to me. I've never liked Ben Shapiro. But yeah, like I definitely like for me, I'm definitely more of the Rumble sphere for some of that stuff. Like I used to listen to a lot of Russell Brand, JP Sears, and like just Joe Rogan, Breaking Points.
Here,
a lot of other ones. Like I'm
gonna go in like 1 minute, so I'm just gonna make a final statement.
I think Justin Trudeau's a dictator for sure, or wannabe dictator that sucks at it.
How the hell have you met the threshold there? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. This is you can't do this right before I leave.
We're out of time. We can't argue about it.
He's got sharp dudes behind his time. Oh my god. So this is what bugs me is we can show all the evidence in the world for Trump. Not enough. Oh, the swamp might just be working against him. This is being diluted. But with Trudeau, With Trudeau, they can do whatever they want, right? Or you can say whatever you want. And any kind of action like that is immediately now you're a dictator. Like, I think that Trudeau leans more dictatorial than I'm comfortable with,
Act,
for sure.
freezing bank accounts. I
Yes,
think it
sure.
wasn't even doing it to the people involved in the Coots border protest. It was the people who freezing the bank accounts of those who donated. I think was a step too far, and I think that was definitely where he ultimately crossed that final line in the sand there. And I think that I feel like Arthur's just trying to bait us. Arthur's trying to rage bait us here. I feel like
truckers were evil. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought like to me, like anyways, I remember watching
I gotta go.
all that. Yeah, anyways, I'm gonna be back by myself in like half an hour, and I'll be getting into today's question period and House of Commons coverage. So we'll see you guys later. If you guys want to tune in for that, I'll be back at about 2:30. I'll see you guys then. And yeah, we'll do more of these. This went pretty well. Thanks for all those who engaged. We really appreciate all your support and wanting to argue with Saul. And thanks, Eric Cake, for agreeing with Saul. I think you were the only one Rob, this entire stream. Okay.
Anyways, yeah.
No, I think you guys are hilarious. But anyways.
Okay. Have a good one.
Yeah, I'll be back by myself in half hours.